have to go to the communications room where we were issued our keys and our radios and get this one specific key, which took authorization of the shift commander. And you had
and again, this door is normally always deadbolted.
Yes.
Okay.
We had keys to all the other doors in that building except that one particular door.
Right.
Nobody inside the perimeter had that key. Well, I had to get authorization from the captain to get the key in writing, and naturally he wanted to know why. Well, I just to keep the sergeant that I relieved, keep his keep him out of trouble. I just told the captain that I wanted to do a security check.
Mm-hmm.
So, fine. So, got it. We went in. Me and 4 of my officers, we went in, done an inspection, and the place was empty. And we secured the door. And I reported back to the captain, no results, everything's fine.
Right.
And then the next day when I come in, I talked to the sergeant that was in charge on the evening shift, told him what I found, and he said, "Did you put it in writing?" I said, "No, I don't think there's any need for that. Ain't no sense of getting a whole bunch of other people involved in this."
Right.
So he said, "Okay, I appreciate it." He said, "Was on the evening shift, they done 2 inspections, and one of them was right around 10 o'clock at night, while everybody else was performing a count. They go around and do their same inspections as when they come on
Yes.
shift.
Right.
Well, this went on for about 6 weeks, and we kept.
Wait a minute. You're saying this door was open every night?
At least twice a week.
At least twice a week. Oh my. Okay.
And I'd still have to go up there and to the comm room, call the captain, get authorization. Well, if I did that for about 3 or 4 weeks, he's starting to get really curious as to why I keep wanting to go in there.
Sure.
Especially, with that particular key, because I got keys to every other door in that building, and it was a pretty good-sized building.
Right.
So after about 6 weeks, it was getting pretty old, and me and my 4 officers, we went in, done our inspection. Well, this time the captain called an emergency count. And this is about 3 o'clock in the morning. And while they're counting, we're going in there and looking around. Didn't find anything. Secured the door. And as we were leaving, we're going down a little service road in between these 2 buildings. And not a whole lot of light back in that area. A few security lights on the buildings. But the main lights is from the perimeter lights around the fence. And I happened to turn around and look up on the second floor window at the end of the wing. And I seen a little girl about 8 to 10 years old, blonde hair. And I just told my other officers, "Hey, come here." So I said, "Look up there. Hey, what do you see?" And all their jaws went slack and their eyes got about as big as silver dollars. I said, "What did you see?" He said, "Do you see a little girl?" They all went, And about that time, she raised up her right hand and waved at us. And never seen her again. Never had any more problems with that door. Needless to say, that did not go on our reports.
No, I wonder what her connection to that door was. Maybe...
There was an old mental health building. Because part of our institution, especially we had 2 sides. And the side that I was on, we had about a half a dozen of these old mental health buildings. You know, like I said, built around 1910, 1908.
Maybe she had a dad or a mom that had been in that building.
Well, there was children there too.
Children too?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, but a few of my officers worked in there for mental health when it was still in operation. And
all right, well, you know, all right. Well, you've given us, thank you very much, another story of, in my opinion, something that's been something physical that has been manipulated by something else. All the stories that we've had so far virtually have involved things physical moved by things not physical. 6 weeks of a deadbolt opening? Well, I guess we'll just have to all wonder what's up with that. Strange. New York. Back to New York and Franklin. Hello.
Hey, Art. How are you?
Just fine, thank
Happy Halloween. This story takes place when my fiancée Gina and I were living in Boston. We lived there in this building for about 2 or 3 years while I was in grad school. And about a month before we were leaving to move back to Brooklyn, we had the apartment packed up and everything, and we're asleep. I'm laying in bed, and I feel someone above me just looking at me. And I'm like, in my head, I'm saying to myself, all right, if you're there, you might not want to be there when I open my eyes. And I'm just kind of joking, you know. I'm not thinking anything of it. As soon as I say this to myself, I feel a gust of wind shoot to my left. And now I open my eyes and I sit up immediately. I'm like, what is this? I look over, and there is a man in our doorway, colonial dressed, long, stringy hair, bifocals, like a tall, thin Benjamin Franklin, okay?
Right.
Now, the man is illuminated. The only light that we have in our apartment is the bathroom door behind him. That's slightly ajar. He is producing his own light, but his light doesn't reflect onto my door, my floor, my wall, nothing. All right? And he's slightly translucent because I can kind of see the bathroom light through him. Now, this man is looking at us with curiosity. No malice, no nothing. I'm just staring at him with curiosity. I touch my girlfriend, and she wakes up, and she looks at the door, and she says, who's the man in white at the door? At that point, I really get freaked out because it was like confirmation. I turn to her. She goes back to sleep. I turn to him, and he's gone. Yeah. I wake her up. She tells me exactly what she saw. It was exactly what I saw. She goes back to sleep. I could not go back to sleep for the rest of the night.
I hear you, buddy. Thank you so very much for that story. Now, isn't that interesting? In other words, it may well be that many times the apparition, or ghost, if you will, is every bit as surprised at being in another place or time than it was used to. So it is as absolutely curious, perhaps even terrified, as you are. And I wonder what that says about the other side. The mixing of that side and this side on some occasions. It may well be that they have absolutely no more of an idea than you do. Think about it. Let's go to Minnesota and Allison. Hi, Allison.
Well, good evening, Art, and happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Well, my story I have a story that actually does involve things being moved without me moving them, but the story that I believe you were most intrigued in is my story of the time I saw a shadow person. And this story goes back about 15 years. I was 9, 10 years old at the time, and I was downstairs. We lived in my grandma's house at the time, and we lived in her basement. And this particular night, my mom had left to go grocery shopping, but my bedroom was in the basement right next to the stairwell. So the only way to get in and out of the basement is on these very, very creaky stairs. If anyone were to come downstairs, including our very fat cat, I would know about it. So I'm reading my book for school that night, and I'm sitting on my bed, and the setup of this basement was very odd. It was my room had two doors, one that went to the stairwell, and then another one that went into a very oblong bathroom that was connected on the other side of this bathroom to our living room. And right by the doorway to the living room, there was a desk, and my mom had a light on that, and she left it on for me so that I wouldn't get scared while she was gone, even though my grandma was upstairs watching TV. So I'm reading this book, and the way I'm sitting on my bed, I can see through the bathroom and then into the living room, and I can see the light is pretty much framed by the little slit of the door that I can see through. And I don't know what compelled me to look up, but I look up over my book into the living room, and as I do so, a 6.5 to 7 foot tall, pitch black shadow. I could see, the only definition it had was I could see shoulders, I could see a head, and I could see that it was wearing a bowler hat, of all things. And it didn't bob up and down, as people do when they walk. It glided behind this desk from the living room into my mom's room, and was gone. And I promptly threw my book across the room, opened the door to the stairwell, and ran upstairs and told my grandma. And she, of course, didn't believe me. Oh, that's silly. But this house, only my mom and I had just handfuls of experiences in this house, so she believed me when I got home. But the part that scared me the most about that shadow person is that it had to have walked a foot or two behind this lamp that was very bright, and it did not cast a shadow on the back wall behind it. It did not have any light reflect off it. It was like a cutout of reality. There was just
yes,
blackness.
And then this entity, you were seeing it full on, straight on with your vision, right? Not
Yes.
peripheral vision, straight on.
Absolutely straight on. I watched it go by and sat there and realized that I'd seen for a second before I turned tail and ran. There was really no malice to anything that happened in that house. It actually, in a weird way, helped me out one time, but it's still such an abnormal thing to see. I just couldn't deal with it, and I ran away.
Oh, I would have too. My kind of gal. All right, well, listen, thank you for the story. It's a good one.
You're very welcome.
Take care. Thank you. My kind of gal. I mean, I'm being honest with you. If I saw a creature like that, I don't know about you, perhaps all the rest of you are considering along with me. What if I saw a creature like that? So-called shadow person, straight on, and then it floated across the floor? I would be so gone. Let's go to Andrew all the way down in Melbourne, Australia. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Art. How are you?
Quite well, and I presume you have a ghost story for us.
I do. It's the story involves my daughter's imaginary friend.
Okay.
For a number of years, my daughter had an imaginary friend that she described as a tall old man that she named Roger. And it was one of those textbook imaginary friends where she would talk with him, play with him, have tea parties with him, and, sometimes even blame him for things. And, my wife and I would fully see her have conversations with, like, an unseen person. And, my wife did her research and she just chalked it up to an overactive imagination. For my daughter at the time was an only child. And we basically thought that, the behaviour was perfectly normal and age-appropriate.
You know what, though? It's still creepy. If you watch a child talking to somebody that's not there, and even apparently getting answers, it's pretty creepy.
It's very creepy, and so my wife thought it was normal, but me, having graduated from the Art Bell School of Ghost to Ghost and other paranormal shows, I always suspected that she may have been talking to a ghost. Having said that, we never had any paranormal activity in the house. We never saw apparitions or disembodied voices or red eyes in the closet. None of that. One thing happened that did freak me out is one day my daughter told me that Roger didn't like me. And that sort of made the hair on the back of my neck sort of stand up. And I said to her, why doesn't Roger like me? I'm a very likable guy. And she said, Roger doesn't like it when you throw cigarettes in his garden.
Oh.
And my daughter did not know that I smoked cigarettes when she was born. I cut down. I would only smoke when I was at work or late at night when she was